Now, chums, go on, admit it, did you? You must have done, of course. If you're like me of a certain age, we all remember this thing that really we kind of liked but didn't like, particularly if you wanted to hear your favourite tunes, your favourite pop stars, and it came at a bit of a bargain price. But I wanted to share this bit of information with you because, quite frankly, if you have some of these, the flexi plastic record disc, you literally could be sitting on a fortune. As ever, let me explain. Morning, chums, nice to see you. Thank you so much as ever for your time today outside this beautiful historic sort of watering hole, shall we call it. Hate the word public house, don't you? It's very nice indeed, as you can imagine. Now, what's interesting, I find, tell me, you see, if you were like me, when you bought your records were quite expensive in our era. And as many people know, I worked in the recording industry, worked with many famous pop stars, and literally it's all about, in our time at least, getting the record out there, making sure that between Monday and Thursday, you could buy that record so that you could get that all-important slot on the very British mega hit show, Top of the Pops. But way back in the 1960s, those very canny people that put all those wonderful tunes together by the likes of Fabian and of course the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Beach Boys, well, they realised that not everybody had that disposable income. But one of the biggest ideas which really turned around the flexi floppy disk, as they called it, was a Christmas message from none other than the Beatles. And this was included on one of their Fab fan magazine things, and it became absolutely huge. In fact, if it had been able to go into the charts, because I don't know if you know this, but those records were not allowed to be counted as chart sales, it would have been number one for weeks. And this really opened the door to a lot of people thinking, this is a great way of getting the message out there from a pop star. But as ever, the British monarchy had already been there first. You see, as many people know, the monarchy, and I've mentioned this many times, really took a lot of lead from the media, particularly Edward VII. Unlike Queen Victoria, he loved the camera. And you see, the camera was very kind to Edward VII because this does happen to some people. On camera, you can look thinner, but on camera, you can also look fatter. Now, I think I'm going for the latter, do you know what I'm saying? Apparently it adds £10 on television cameras. But King Edward apparently looked slimmer than he was. He couldn't believe it. He loved it, of course. Thought this was the way forward. Now, fast forward a few years and the burgeoning radio wireless system that's really taken on board, as we know, became a sort of, a staple of addressing the nation by His Majesty the King. But, a lot of people decided that they wanted to make sure, how could we get the royals' message across? Now, in 1924, a very special flexi small 78 record became once again a huge collector's item. And this was because for the very first time available in the mass public consumption was the recording of God Save the King. And this truly was for His Majesty the King, but put together for Queen Mary. Now, the use of plastic discs for recording sound, including a royal message, has had a really fascinating history. Early records used shellac, but vinyl became a more durable plastic and more popular in the 1940s, leading to familiar long-playing LP records. The history also includes flexi-discs, thin, flexible records, often included with magazines or used for specific messages. A notable example of this is God Save the King, a record created for Queen Mary in 1924, which was one of the very smallest 78 discs ever made. Now, imagine this. They decided, going to Queen Mary, well, would you like to add a few words at the beginning? Now, you see, the great British public had no idea that, in fact, Queen Mary had a very strong Germanic accent. That was very, let's be honest, this is the silent era. You'd seen her at the Movie Tone News and you'd seen her on the screens at your local Regal and Gaumont and, not the Odeons because they hadn't started yet. But you'd no idea really what she sounded like. Of course, you'd heard His Majesty the King. And they went to her and said, well, how about just introducing the record? She said, no, it wasn't really her thing. But of course, she was too embarrassed to do that, right? So consequently, her very first vocal recording was given with her blessing in 1924 as a sort of big official Flexi 78 record. Now, fast forward, as I say, the flexi discs have become one in their own, and they went right through until the 1980s. And if you remember, when you put them on your record player, you had to put like a 2p or a 10p, whatever it was, on them to make the arm stay down. Do you remember? They just skidded. The only other person in the Royals that got involved with that was none other than the late and brilliant His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. I told you previously how he very famously introduced a Frank Sinatra charitable record. So he goes down as the very first royal to appear on a chart record. But the flexi disc sadly went out of fashion, even though they were still popular because of the rise of the digital age, the cassette, that became a thing. And I remember in the latter parts of my career in the recording industry, they'd started with, mini discs and stuff like that, things to give away to make you like the band evermore. So the question I asked today is, did you have any flexi discs, floppy discs? Did you keep them? And what were they? And more importantly, if you've got one somewhere, check them out. They are worth an absolute fortune because they've become literally collector's items. You see? Nothing is ever wasted, is it, in the long run? Neil Shawn in the very heart of Yorkshire.